My name is John Passfield, and the title of this reading will be L.M. Montgomery, Video 5, The Private Voice. Here is my novel, L.M. Montgomery, I Gave You Life, a novel by John Passfield. Now, that's a photo of the historical L.M. Montgomery about 1938 when she was writing the book that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Here's a summary of the novel. In 1938, with another world war looming and her own personal problems threatening to overwhelm her, acclaimed Canadian novelist L.M. Montgomery begins to write what she has decided will be her final Anne novel. As she works on the new book, she recalls the days when Anne of Green Gables became a worldwide literary phenomenon and the dilemma that she faced at that time. So here was her dilemma: whether to write a series of novels in which Anne would perpetually remain the child the world had come to know and love, or to allow Anne to grow to adulthood with all the agonizing torments of the one who had given her life, L.M. Montgomery. So those of us who have children or grandchildren don't have a choice as to whether to keep them as cute little kids with no problems. But if you're a writer and you create a cute little child with no problems in a novel, then you would have that choice if you were asked to write a series of novels with that character in them. And that was her choice. Now, 3 novels then on the go. L.M. Montgomery Gave You Life, in which L.M. Montgomery is a character. That's my novel. She goes back in her mind to the days when she was writing Anne of Green Gables, with Anne as the young girl who has problems, yes, but they tend to be solved, right? That's the point there. And they're not major problems, not the major problems that L.M. Montgomery by 1938 feels she has suffered from. Okay, so Anne is a child in Anne of Green Gables. As she's starting to write L.M. Montgomery, the final Anne novel, the final novel with Anne as a character, she remembers making that decision as to whether to keep Anne as a child through what became 8 novels or to let her grow up and become an adult through those 8 novels. So 3 novels on the go. Now, I have mentioned a number of times in these video presentations that the premise of my novels and novellas is that every word is a thought in the mind of the main character. In this novel, of course, the main character is L.M. Montgomery. Now, there are 16 chapters of thought in the mind of L.M. Montgomery. So the 15th chapter of thought is the second last chapter of thought in the mental journey of the main character, L.M. Montgomery, and what you and I think of as a novel. She's not thinking of it as a novel. These are her thoughts. You and I read these thoughts, we call it a novel. Another way to think of this novel is that it's a 50,000 word thought in the mind of the main character. Now, in chapter 15 of her 50,000 word thought, she thinks of things which, she herself affirms, she does not speak out loud. So let's have a look at what we can label her private voice, okay? These are the things that nobody who knows her has ever heard her say, but they do dominate her thoughts. Okay, so her private voice and the thoughts she thinks to herself and keeps to herself. My mother died when I was less than 2. My father left me to go and live in the West. Name me one orphan who felt that she was loved. The world has given me fame. They believe that I am Anne. They believe the 2 of us live in Avonlea. Okay, that's the first private thought. Here's the second. There are 8 in this chapter. Oh, you generation of vipers, free to speak while I could not. Every parasite, every gossip, every assassin of character, all the venom of a rabid quilting bee. I spent all those years in agony. I was crucified in the dark, the target of every axe and spear, covered with honey, covered with ants. I spent those years being tortured while tied to a tree. The third private thought. Oh, Ewan, I feel revulsion at even the thought of your touch. You are young and handsome and carried yourself so well. But look at what you have become. An empty hulk, a rotting shell, a stinking skeleton on the beach. You are tormented, crazed, alone. I'm afraid that what has happened to you is gradually, very gradually happening to me. Except that I can walk and talk, as you cannot. My worst nightmare is that I am slowly becoming you. Okay, now her fourth private thought is this. I despise my own son. Yes, Chester, I do. The upside down and inside out of everything I hoped you would be. I carried you inside me. You lurk inside me still. You are the curse that I have loosed upon the world. Where is your wife? Where are your children? Where do you slither in the depths of the night? Woe to me that I have been a mother to you. Then her fifth private thought. I practice my smile as the children line up at the zoo. When are you going to write a better book than Anne of Green Gables? An Anne without any problems, an Anne without any strife. I have strife and problems enough in my daily world. When will you write another young Anne? Why does Anne have to grow old? We liked it better when you and Anne were in Avonlea. Okay, that's the fifth private thought. Here's private thought number 6 in chapter 15. Utter terror at the world, utter revulsion at what it is and what I am. 2 world wars, millions of dead and another one on the way. I am a disciple of King Lear. If the world is not perfect, I do not want to live in it. If I am not perfect, I do not want to live in the world. I wrote a novel in which I tried to escape from both. We are all in a house in the middle of the night, and the black water is rising through the floorboards. What does it matter whether any of us know how to swim? And then private thought number 7. Oh, my Anne. Oh, my Anne. Oh, I hope you are not me. But you have followed me around to Leaksdale, to Norval, to Swansea. I see you lingering in the neighborhood when I go out for a walk. You have knocked on my door and asked to live in my house. Oh, Anne. Oh, precious Anne. I hope you are not me, as I am not you. And then the last segment of private thought in chapter 15. It is all in my journals. I have recorded my darkest thoughts for 50 years. I've asked my son Stuart to publish them, every thought and every word. Thoughts about Ewan, thoughts about Chester, thoughts about relatives, neighbors, friends, thoughts about fame and writing books, and yes, thoughts about Anne. I made Stuart promise me, hand on heart and eye to eye, not a word must you soften, not a word must you omit. Publish these journals when I am dead. I want everyone to know just who I am. Well, that's the private voice of L.M. Montgomery. Private thoughts, because she never voices those thoughts publicly. So in this particular image arc in her mind, the main character thinks the thoughts that she does not speak out in public. She's been a minister's wife all her life, and as she thinks, a minister's wife is not free to say some of the less cheerful things that she thinks of as time goes by. And she's also the writer of what is taken to be a whole series of very cheerful, positive, life-affirming novels, the novels about Anne of Green Gables. And so her public persona has been that of a cheerful, positive, life-affirming person. However, as she mentions in these thoughts, as she thinks and we overhear her thinking, she has kept a journal for 50 years in which she has jotted down all of the dark, negative, perhaps life-denying thoughts that have occurred to her as she's gone about her public life as a cheerful, positive, life-affirming minister's wife and world-famous author of life-affirming, cheerful, positive novels. Now, I suppose one could say that this novel, my novel, Ella Montgomery, I Gave You Life, is unique because it's about a person who has a public life as a world-famous author and a private life as a small-town minister's wife, but that most lives don't have such a discrepancy between the public and the private life. Well, I believe it's true that we create myths in our daily lives. We create myths about other people, often based on the fact that we know so little about them that we only see 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 distinctive traits. But I believe it's also true that we create myths about ourselves. Public myths in which we present what we consider to be the 1 or 2 or the 5 or 10 traits that we would like the public to consider as typical of us. I'll agree, if put under pressure, that perhaps this novel gives an exaggerated version of what it is to be human, but I would never agree with the idea that Ella Montgomery, as presented in this novel, is not a typical human being. The private myth and the public myth are the products of our minds, and the dynamic relationship between the two is one of the main preoccupations of our lives. Now, this is my novel, Ella Montgomery, I Gave You Life, a novel by John Passfield. It's found on Amazon. Have a look there for more information. My publisher's website is roxmillspress.com, or CKSMILLSPRESS.com. More information there. On my website, johnpassfield.ca, JOHNPASSFIELD.ca. There are 2 free books. My planning notebook, the notebook in which I planned and wrote this novel, and my reflective journal in which I reflected on this novel, on Ella Montgomery and all their novels really, on literature, and on what it is to be human. So have a look there. Just click on the icon and you'll get those 2 books free to read if you so desire. And lastly, I'll just say thank you for watching this video.